Hello and welcome to Business Analytics and Analysis Knowledge Share CBAP IIBA Learning Session. This is Chapter 5 of the BABOK, which goes through the Requirements Lifecycle Management. So in this session, I will go through the introduction of the Requirements Lifecycle Management, and you will be able to see essentially what this entails. So without further ado, let me go ahead and start sharing. Now, what is requirements life cycle management? Life cycle refers to the existence of various phases or states that requirements pass through as part of any change. Requirements may be in multiple states at one time. The requirements lifecycle management knowledge area describes the tasks that business analysts perform in order to manage and maintain requirements and design information from inception to retirement. Now, tasks describe establishing meaningful relationships between related requirements and designs, assessing changes to requirements and designs when changes are proposed, and analyzing and gaining consensus on changes. The purpose of requirements lifecycle management is to ensure that the business, stakeholder, and solution requirements and designs are aligned to one another, and solution implements them through constant change. It involves a level of control over requirements and over how requirements will be implemented in the actual solution to be considered and delivered. It also helps to ensure that business analysis information is available for future use. The requirements lifecycle begins with the representation of a business need as a requirement. It then continues through the development of a solution and ends when a solution and the requirements that represent it are retired. In this diagram, you will see that in the Manage section on your right, it includes trace, maintain, and prioritize. So this relates to managing requirements. The assessment and the approval occur not so much in front or at the back, but they occur concurrently. So this whole process occurs concurrently. So in this case, someone will, or a business analyst would assess requirements or potential requirements. Is it, can we move this forward? If it is a yes, it'll move into approval and consensus. If it is a no, it loops back to assessment, and then it kind of comes in through the intake process. And then you move on to, all right, can this be managed? If yes, then you trace and maintain and prioritize. If no, then it goes back to becoming a potential requirement and then goes back to the assessment. So think of this block here not so much as a sequence, but more so as a concurrency of managing requirements through the life cycle. Let's walk through this chapter with a case study. Meet Amanda. Amanda is a business analyst that has been assigned to a project. The project is to move the restaurant sales online. Her team uses the Agile methodology. Now, within the requirements lifecycle management, Amanda needs to keep in mind that there are 5 tasks. There's a trace, a maintain, a prioritize that we saw earlier that basically falls under manage. You have assess and you have approve. So think of this and remember this through this sentence. 10 mice picked at Amanda. T is for trace, 10. M is for maintain, mice. P is for prioritized, picked. A is for assess, at. A is for approve, Amanda. Now, there are several tasks, and just need to understand inputs and outputs to these tasks. So as mentioned earlier, for trace requirements, the inputs are the requirements and the design. The outputs are basically whether the requirement is traced and the design is traced. Maintain, same inputs, and the output is requirements maintained and design maintained. Prioritize requirements, same inputs, except that they need to be prioritized. There's a typo here, it needs to be prioritized. The task to assess requirements changes has requirements, design, and proposed changes as inputs. And the output is requirements change assessment and design change assessment. Note, changes to requirements and approval of the requirements depend on the project methodology reused and the allocation of requirements. And so the reason why that's there is because in an Agile versus SDLC format, the SDLC methodology may require more of a formality versus the Agile may not. The approved requirements. In this case, the input is the requirements are verified and the design is actually verified. And in this case, the outputs are requirements approved and design approved. How does this tie back to the business analysis core concept model? Now, the business analysis core concept model has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pillars. Let's see how it's tied. The requirements lifecycle management is tied to these 6 pillars. Number 1, change. As it relates to requirements lifecycle management, change is used to evaluate requirements and design. As it relates to the need, you can trace, prioritize, and maintain requirements. Remember, going back to the manage bucket, all these 3 fall under that. Stakeholders, work closely with the key stakeholders to maintain, understand, agree, and approve of requirements and designs. Value, maintain requirements for reuse. Context, supporting tracking and prioritization activities with constantly changing context. Solution, trace requirements and designs to solution components. Let's go back to our case study. Amanda is excited to start her journey through the requirements lifecycle management. Now, what she would need to consider are, and actually is, this sort of back and forth process between the different tasks. Also needs to consider the inputs and outputs, and she needs to ensure that the inputs are available before she can actually start tracing the requirements or through the other tasks. As an example, before she starts tracing requirements, she would ensure that there are requirements and designs available. Now, this could be in the format of more of a Excel spreadsheet that has a baseline of requirements or a backlog where there's a list of requirements in it. She'll also consider a design. So design could be anything from like a component diagram to anything that maybe the tech lead may have developed or documented. So she'll take these 2 artifacts and she will then look at how to go about tracing the requirements, what are the dependencies, what are the relationships between the requirements and the design, and come up with the output. Thank you so much for watching this. In our next video episode, I will go through the next section in requirements lifecycle management, and that's to trace requirements. Thank you for watching.